That's the way it works every time.
Are you doing?
Put you on.
You're the main when I first started. I know, so mine right down funny stuff too. I called Mrs. I'm drinking it.
Me
Mrs.
too.
Hubbard.
Oh, nice.
I thought,
Wow.
Mine too.
the whole table laughed, I didn't know why.
Yeah,
yours I found out later.
That's one of the better things I've heard today.
Yeah.
They were like, read the ordinances and do a roll call, and I'm looking around like, yeah, I don't know anybody.
They'll kill you.
Like you more and more every time.
I heard you.
Snowplow on?
All ready to go, buddy. They're saying 2 now or so.
Oh, really?
We'll see. I know once it starts, it's gonna be a long day tomorrow.
2 inches an hour, yeah.
Thursday before I go home again.
I'm excited. We haven't paid much overtime, so it's good catch up.
What's that?
We haven't paid much overtime.
It's a good thing John's not here to smack you, Sean. That's always a positive.
Yeah, I washed my truck and put it on today, so it's nice and clean before I start.
I want it to look nice when you're plowing.
It does, it's all shit.
Get underway in about 10 seconds. 9, 8, 3. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City Council meeting for tonight, January 24th, 2023. This evening, before we get underway, we have Pastor Knopfsinger from First Christian Church on Carter Road, who will open us up in prayer. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Let's go ahead and pray. God, I just thank you for this time that's been set aside tonight. And verse in my heart earlier today was just forgetting what's behind and pressing on. And so I just pray that as we start a new year, whatever frustrations or whatever challenges may have consumed the last year, just pray that those would kind of fade to the back of our mind and we just embrace whatever new challenges lie ahead for our city and our area, and just lift up these leaders to you and ask that you would grant them wisdom for that task, that they would just have the clear direction tonight. And we pray for our school system as well. Pray that you would just continue to bless them and help them as they seek to educate our students, and just for all the folks and the families and everybody in our area, that this would just be a year of blessing, and that we would be able to do just whatever we can as a community to come alongside folks in whatever way they need. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And thank you for your service to Defiance.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
This meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all members of council are present. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I reviewed the index minutes for the City Council meeting of January 10th of 2023. Do we have a motion to correct or amend the index minutes as presented? If we don't, I will approve the same. Do we have any liaison meeting requests or reports? With that, do we have any comments from council this evening before we get underway? Mr. Engel.
Yes, I've had some reports on a van with some junk in a trailer with the same thing, and also a car over in Wayne Avenue by the old Brown Bakery building. And I don't know what Brian or the mayor has heard anything on that, or if anything has been done on that.
Yes, actually, I had some concerns everywhere in the neighborhood. They were based off of some different comments that come in. So I sent Rex and Bill both out there to take a look at the area. While they were there, they were able to talk to the owner of those vehicles, advise them that they needed tagged and moved. But the report has been started on them, and it's in process. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ryan, how long do you have to wait before you can remedy that? Is there a certain time?
So I wanna say, it's normally, Bill will give about a week to make sure that cars tagged, vehicles moved in some way, shape or form, before we initiate tow stickers on things.
That time frame can change and speed up depending on whether it's obstructing a right of way.
Yeah.
If that's the case, they can.
In an emergency
Residents
situation.
and patients have anything to do with that time? Just ask.
We will take that into account.
Do we have any other comments from council? There's nothing on my desk at this time. Mayor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one thing from me, but it's a rather big thing. After really an extensive search and interview process, I've selected Kimberly Sprague to be our next, she goes by Kim, to be our next finance director. I'd like to appoint her beginning February 6th to a 2-year contract.
Shall the consent of council be given to the appointment of Kimberly Sprague to the office of Finance Director for an initial term of 2 years as proposed by the mayor?
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. And Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Congratulations, Mrs. Sprague.
I just had a question on that real quick.
Yes,
Will we get to see her, contract at all? I mean, as far as the finances and stuff?
I can forward that to you. Yep, it's well within budget.
That's what, yeah.
Members of council, thank you, Mr. President. Kim is here, and she asked, I'm gonna go get her and bring her in and introduce her, and she'll
good.
take her seat at the end of the table.
All right.
Excellent.
Hey,
Members of
welcome.
council,
Hey,
Kim Sprague.
Welcome.
Hi, Sam.
welcome.
Thank you.
So is Eric your husband?
What's that?
Eric your husband?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aw,
Official passing of the budget,
okay,
so.
thank you.
From one finance director to the next.
Yeah,
Next.
interim to the
Okay.
new head now.
That's what I do.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, thank you. I'm really looking forward to it, and please, if you ever have any questions, let me know. I'm very excited.
Did I have you in first grade?
Yeah, yes. Either I think you did. I don't remember exactly, but or my sister, which she was just 2
I
years
know.
younger than me. But yes.
I know I had Lisa, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. Well,
When the mayor
if you
called
don't
me,
remember me, I must have been a good
You were good.
good student then.
Hopefully good at math.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So,
First grade math, okay.
Yeah.
for everyone that's going, Mrs. Crutch taught at Continental, which Kim is a
Yes.
graduate of Continental.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, sir. I'm just excited. This is one of those things that since John told me he was leaving, it's weighed pretty heavy on all of us at that end of the building, and well, at that end of the building too. So we're just thrilled.
Congratulations. Mr. Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple items actually. So first off, I have 7 purchase orders that I need to make council aware of because of the amount. The first one is, these are all 2023 purchase orders. The first one is 590, release of escrow funds for 1054 Holgate Apartment Complex, in the amount of $17,500. Purchase order 561, valve actuators for aeration blowers 1 through 3 and water pollution control. That is in the amount of $22,303.50. The next would be purchase order 509, the man unit matching funds that we pay every year in the amount of $25,000. It's our entry fee into the man unit to pay to be members. Next would be 503, which is Verizon Wireless in the amount of $16,689.37. Next is 435 North Clinton Street Lift Station wet well lining in the amount of $21,000. And lastly, we have 434, which is the Elliott Road lift station wet well lining in the amount of $22,050. So I need to make you aware of those, so now you've been made aware.
Thank you.
The other topics I had were, there've been some questions, and I'm sure people have asked you about OmniFiber. They came in and did a presentation. People were excited. They were curious about it. I just wanted to make you aware. And Melinda is here, so maybe at some point if she has anything further to add, she can. But the last conversations we had with them, Melinda was walking them through the steps of permit applications in the city of Defiance. And they had told us to expect permits sometime towards the end of this month or the beginning of February. So that is the last correspondence we've had with them. That's the best update I can give you at this point till we get some permits in to see what's going on. Lastly, as we've joked about for council, snow's coming. So our crews were out diligently preparing today. They pre-treated the roads. DJ's got his shifts in hand, ready to do what they do during the winter. But I would encourage, and I guess this is for Todd for the YouTube, people consider their neighbors. We need to have those sidewalks cleared. We sent out letters to the north side this year. If you have elderly neighbors, consider those people. If you can, go out and shovel those sidewalks, help them out through these, hard winter times. So that was the only thing I wanted to add to that.
If we get the snow that they're saying that we're gonna get, I know that a lot of people see the trucks out and plowing. Just as a refresher, what is the priority in regards to whether my neighborhood will get the snow plows down? Is it the main streets first?
Correct. Main streets will be hit first. That's the priority, to get the main thoroughfares through and around Defiance taken care of. Residential streets will be gotten to when we can, if we can. But it's the main priority will be keeping those main roads clear for people to pass through.
They do try to get as much as Defiance as they can.
Yep.
And basically just make it so that people are able to travel.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Usually once they get the big roads done, then they'll split in crews and go different ways for.
Yeah, we have individuals who are normally handle an area of the city, and that person, once they have the main thoroughfares clear, will split off to their kind of section that they cover.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Mr. Hancock?
And two other things along with that snow removal is we'll probably have a notification for downtown removal depending on the accumulation amount. And also the accumulation amount for plowing for residential areas. Is it 5 inches or more? Do you know what the criteria is?
3 or 4. And
Okay.
it varies. I'll have to
Sure.
say that, to be honest with you, I've asked Mr. Zedike to be a little more diligent. We've done residential streets with less amounts. Mr. Hancock, he looks at the longer term forecast. If we were supposed to get 2 inches of snow today, and I don't think we know what we're gonna get yet, but then by the end of the week, it's supposed to be in the 40s. Somewhat likely he might not do residential streets, knowing that by the end of the week, it's gonna melt off. And, but that's pretty much the way it works. But I think in the brief time we spoke this morning with Mr. Zedike, his plan was to go full bore ahead. He thought the way things were forecast, he was going to be most likely plowing the snow downtown into the middle of the street, scheduling, again, all preliminary. I know I'll get quoted on this, but don't quote me on this, about maybe a Thursday night snow emergency to get downtown cleared out, but let's just see how it goes.
we'll call it weather dependent.
Yes, there you go.
And I agree. I think in years past, the city has been very cooperative in the neighborhoods, depending on, like you said, the weather itself, because it's gonna be 40.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. That all you had, because Ms.
all I have.
Elders reminded me of something that probably wouldn't hurt to update you on. So as you know, internally here, we've been working very hard on our new website. I think you'll be very, very impressed. Tentative date this morning in our meeting is set to release that website or whatever. I think, what's the term? Release? Launch. The 31st of January. So next week. And that could be a few days later than that, depending on how each department and division is getting all their updates through. There's been a lot of people that have worked very hard on that, but I have to give credit to my assistant Debbie Stevens Just remarkable job in coordinating things and bringing the right people into the Zoom meetings that we've had on it. She's just done a spectacular job. And I think you're gonna be very impressed with the website when you see it. It's pretty cool.
And the council clerk has been hard at work.
Yeah.
Making sure that the council's page is.
I
looking
can't
good.
tell you how great Lisa looks for those 8:30 meetings we've been having.
Very good.
And that's it?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to request an executive session for a conference with an attorney for the public body concerning a dispute involving the public body that is subject of imminent court action. Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G3.
We have a request for an executive session. Do we have such a motion? Mr. Mast, second. Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Before we adjourn for this evening, we have an executive session. Mr. O'Donnell, anything else?
Yes, Mr. President, I would request an executive session for a conference with an attorney for the public body concerning a dispute involving the public body, subject of pending court action. Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G3.
So moved.
Mr. Engel?
Second.
Second, Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And that's all I have. We've got to get home
Okay.
before the snow emergency.
And I have one more thing, and I promise, unless spoken to, I won't speak again the rest of the evening, but listen, this is what small town's all about. So I received a text just now from Rita Kistner. Rita Kistner, as you all know, is former finance director and mayor. Great choice on Kim Sprague for finance director. You know, she lives in the mayoral mansion in Jefferson Street. So for those that don't know, Kim and her family live in Rita's old house on Jefferson.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our finance director, Ms. Sprague. Do you have any information, any updates for us
No,
this evening?
I do not. I do not.
We'll catch you next
But I
time.
will. Yes, yes, thank you.
We do have several items of legislation for consideration this evening. Would you read the caption for the first?
Just reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing a hazard mitigation grant agreement with Ohio Emergency Management Agency and declare an emergency.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. President. The state of Ohio awarded the city in 2020 with a hazard mitigation grant in the amount of $216,775.80. Now, the cost of the total proposed project is $240,862. And so that means the city's 10% local share for these EMA projects, hazard mitigation projects, would be $24,086.20. So that's 10% of the overall project cost. The project is for the acquisition and demolition of these two residential structures, 204 East 2nd and 18 Summit Street. And that's according to Google Earth, so if that's wrong, I apologize. The hope is that, as we make improvements to the Kingsbury Park, this opens up a little bit more park land. And over here by the pickleball courts, which are very popular come spring and summer and warmer months, they'll take care of some of the noise issues we've been having down there. And it's all the better if we can use flood mitigation grants to do that. These are both in the Zone AE flood zone, so that clears out the danger of at least 2 homes from flooding.
Excellent.
So, this would just approve or enable a city administrator to sign the grant agreement.
Do we have any questions for Mr. O'Donnell? Mr. Hancock?
And with this grant, does it also allow the purchase of these properties, or they have already been purchased?
Sorry, I should have clarified. It is for the acquisition of 3 parcels, and they are at, well, like I said, 204 East Second, 18 Summit Street, and then there's an 18A Summit Street. So that's how they gave the address. 18A doesn't have structure on it, but it's right next to 18, obviously. So it's for acquisition and demolition, which is an estimated $240,000.
Thank you.
So any other?
Breaking what I said.
You
but
said not unless you're supposed to.
Said you were done.
The owners still have the opportunity to opt out if they so choose. Okay, so this isn't a given that this will happen.
Contingent.
Yep.
Mr. Mass?
Motion to suspend the call.
We have a motion to suspend and call.
Second, please.
Second, Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. And Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt. Mrs. Crutch, second. Mr. Waxler?
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
This ordinance is adopted.
Great. First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to make application to the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Ayersville Avenue Sidewalk Connectivity Project and to enter in an agreement to secure those funds and declare an emergency.
Mr. Mack?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With this ordinance, we're seeking to apply for a Transportation Alternative Program or TAP funding to continue our sidewalk connection work through the Ayersville Avenue area. This particular grant program is a 95% payment on the project, and with council's approval tonight, I would be allowed to sign the grant application itself and then accept funds if we indeed win the project over. The funding period for this is state funding 25, which means we would most likely have to look at this in our capital budget going into 24 to see if we get the funding and whether council would approve or be interested in a project like that. So I have brought our engineer, Melinda, along to answer any questions that you might have about this proposed project.
Mr. Waxler?
I was gonna say, no further questions, but I think he's got a question.
Yeah, the sidewalk itself, are we looking, Ayersville Avenue, or I'm sorry, Dehoney Road is the extent of it.
Yes,
Where will it start?
it'll start near Defiance Ridge Apartments where the existing sidewalk ends. Start from that location.
Is that,
Logan Street?
is that off?
Close
is
to
that
Logan Street.
Close to Cleveland, that area?
It's
North of Cleveland.
Logan, okay. And also, this is really nice if we can, achieve this, it'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Esty?
Are these the 5 foot wide,
It would just be a 5-foot wide sidewalk
Okay.
on one side.
be the same as it's on Cleveland? Cleveland
It
or,
would be the same that's on Cleveland, east of Ottawa Avenue.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions in these regards? Mr. Engel?
Motion to suspend call.
We have a motion to suspend and call. Second. Second, Mr. Mast?
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Mast. Second, Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
And Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance awarding a contract for the purchase of 14 body-worn cameras.
Mr. Mack?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So this is an item that we discussed going into the budget season. This is a budgeted item. The police chief, I believe, came up and spoke about it. These 14 body cameras would allow each of our police officers to have their own body camera assigned to them, which helps with chain of custody, the continuity of the evidence, things of that nature. The total quoted price is $32,820. So we are seeking your approval for that.
Mr. Waxler.
No further question, we'll suspend and call.
Motion to suspend and call Mr. Waxler. Second, Mr. Corbett. Mr. Uresti.
Yeah, this is, I think through our discussion, I think coming away from that, my thoughts are this money well spent. It helps them perform their job better, and I think anytime we can do that, I think that to help them, that's money well spent.
Agreed, Mr. Uresti.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
And Mr. Mass?
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Corbett.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mast.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
And Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is also adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 2 police cruisers and related equipment.
Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mr. President. This again was a budgeted item that we discussed during the capital budget request period. We are looking at 2 police cruisers, one of which would be outfitted with a K-9 handling package, which would allow our police department to move up to 2 K-9 units. So we are asking for council's approval in this.
Mr. Waxler.
No further question, we'll suspend and call.
If we have no other questions, we have a motion to suspend and call.
Second.
Mrs. Crutch.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Corbett.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mast.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is also adopted. And lastly, for the items of legislation this evening,
First reading by caption only, a resolution expressing support for the enterprise zone agreement between the Board of Commissioners of Defiance County, Ohio for Fort Winchester Investment Partners LLC and DEC LLC.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This proposed project is within an enterprise zone established by this council in 1987. And this project is on the very same parcel that is the site of the, if you think back a few years, the original spec building that the city partnered to build several years ago. And since then, we've seen some success, actually a lot of success with the current tenant, DECT LLC. And now DECT wishes to expand their operations. They want to create 36 new full-time positions. And the timeline would be as follows: 13 this year, 5 in 24, 11 in 2025, and 7 in 2026. And this is all contained in the agreement. Out of the total investment, $7,240,000 in improvements to the property is covered by this agreement. And the proposal is for a 60% property tax exemption on the real property improvements on the number I just stated for 10 years. There is a school donation involved. And the parties to the agreement, as you can probably see from the cover page, are the Board of Commissioners of Defiance County, Fort Winchester Investment Partners LLC, the landowner, and DECT LLC. So Ohio Revised Code requires council's input through resolution in order for the Board of Commissioners to approve this enterprise zone agreement. And Ms. Willitzer from the CIC office is here to amend the record on anything I said that was incorrect.
Give it the thumbs up. Mr. Mast.
Now these are improvements at the existing Elliott Road property, right?
Correct. It's you can see them as you're driving by Elliott Road. My 3-year-old actually gives me construction updates when we drive by.
So just note on the ordinance, this is Commerce Drive, so.
Yeah, let's take a look at this here. The second whereas.
Well, I think that's because it's in the agreement here.
Oh, there's my mistake.
Yeah, let's just list that as a Chris Scrivener's error.
Where at? So I can change it?
The second whereas.
Yeah,
What's
the
it
zone
supposed to
agreement
say?
states Elliott Road, so.
Say LA Road.
Right here?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. 2 T, right?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
And also, do we have an enterprise zone agreement currently with the current existing portion of the deck building, or I should say the spec building? So this will just be additional, not revised, it's just
This will
additional.
be an entirely new agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
There's
Corbett?
no further questions, motion to suspend the call.
If we have no other questions, we have a motion to suspend and call. Second, Mr. Mast?
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And Mr. Hancock?
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Hancock.
Second.
Second, Mr. Engel.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
And Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
And with that, this resolution is adopted. Before we adjourn this evening, we do have 2 executive sessions. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. But before we even enter executive session, we have time for citizens' concerns or questions. We have as guests this evening a couple scouts. Would you like to introduce yourself this evening? And
Come on up. Take the mic.
Hello, I'm Dominic Paxton and this is my father Andrew, and we are representing Church 70 from St. Paul's Methodist Church. And we just came here to listen to your guys' opinions and problems, and I'm currently here working on my communications merit badge.
well, congratulations. Thanks for being our guest this
Is this your
evening.
first time here?
I came here one more time before to work on community and the citizenship in the community merit badge. So I've been here before.
Very good.
Standing at that podium in this room with millions of people watching you on television can be a bit intimidating, but you just communicated quite well, young fella.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Very good job.
Good job.
Good job.
Thank you.
And before the meeting this evening, I asked you to cook up a difficult question if you wanted to ask council members any difficult questions.
We don't have it.
Don't have any? We'll let you slide this
Good
time.
man, good man.
And unless there's any citizens' concerns that you council members were given, all right,